to talk about who's winning the Democratic race so far. Who's winning? I got this question from Nathaniel Grisham III, so thank you for the question, Nathaniel. And who is winning so far? There's some information that I think people need to know before you can ask that question, because who's winning so far? Bernie's been up in the polls. Bernie's been down the polls. So I'm going to first just give you some facts. And if that's all you come here for, then, just take the facts and, eat them up, you pricks. So the facts are, okay, so right now, we just had a Democratic debate, 10, one night, 10 the other night, and there's going to be another debate July 30th to the 31st, so that's just at the end of this month. That's just going to be in, the 30th minus 12, so 28 days? No, 18 days. Anyways, so in 18 days we're going to have another debate. In 18 days, the 30th and the 31st, and then the third debate is the September 12th to the 13th. And then that's it. That's all the big, the DNC debates that are out there. So you're only going to have 3 of these, 10 on one stage, 10 on the next stage debates. Now, that's important because while this is, this is a campaign. This is a movement. So we're, building up to the moment. And when's the moment? The moment is Election Day. So when is Election Day? Election Day is February 3rd. That's when the Iowa caucuses are. And I want to mention something about this, too. So 2020, February 3rd, so that's what, 8 months out, 7 months out? So the election is still, a few months out. It's actually what, just in terms of politics, it's going to be here in no time. But it's still 7 months away. So how can we tell who's winning and who's not winning right now? Like we're not even close to even Election Day, and we're just starting these debates. So Iowa caucuses are on February 3rd. New Hampshire primary is February 11th. Nevada caucuses are February 22nd. Then South Carolina primary is February 23rd. And then on March 3rd is a Super Tuesday when a shit ton of states are voting: Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia. They'll all have their primaries. So you got the Iowa caucuses, New Hampshire primary, Nevada caucuses, South Carolina primary, and then you have the primaries of Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia. Now, the Democratic abroad, they're going to vote between March 3rd to the 10th. So March 3rd is going to be your line of demarcation. We will really know something by March 3rd. Okay, so the way that Iowa and New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina, they are weighted so much. Iowa is weighted so much. It's like they're so much more important, right? So they're like a straw poll, and a lot of these candidates will drop out right after Iowa. Rand Paul dropped out after one election. If you're really in it to winning, if you're really going to go to be the president, just because Iowa didn't choose you, or New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, that doesn't mean the rest of the country isn't going to like you. So if I was running a campaign, I wouldn't drop out unless, after Super Tuesday, after 20 states had their elections and nobody won, then, or you didn't win after 20 elections and you didn't win any of those, okay, that's time for you to step out. So I would much rather, I want instant runoff voting. You got 25 fucking candidates. Instant runoff voting would absolutely make sense. You get to rank your candidates. Instead, on Election Day, you'll just go vote for one of the 25. With ranked choice voting, you could have voted for, up to 5. And that also, ranked choice voting is fair for libertarians and independents, and so we don't have a fair election system. And then with ranked choice voting, you also get to find out the deep, wide support, deep, wide, and far support. So it's not just the people who's more popular or a little bit more popular than the other person, but it's the person that was popular, with every so the other candidates, who's going to vote? If you vote for a long shot candidate and you don't, so it's like you wasted your vote. But if you have ranked choice voting, you can vote for your long shot candidates, and then you can vote for your more, mainstream candidates. And that would encourage, more folks to get out there. It also it gives more power to the voter. Instant runoff voting would be absolutely perfect for the Democratic primary. And it should be all in one day. Just do it on one day, just like the presidential election. But the reason why they do this is to break it out and make it, fun, make it a campaign, make it like, oh my God, where are we going to go with this? But typically what happens after Iowa, New Hampshire, so Bill Clinton, I think he got third or second in New Hampshire or something, and he called himself the comeback kid. And so, you know, Iowa and New Hampshire, they're weighted so much because they're the first elections in the Democratic primaries or the caucuses, that when people, you know, lose Iowa, then they assume that the rest of the country isn't going to go for them, and I don't like that. So I would prefer the election day to be on one day and for them to use instant runoff voting. So that way it'd be the person that the majority actually support. The majority doesn't have to vote for the winner, right? If they get a plurality, then they won the state. They got 40%, the other guy gets 30%, well then they win, even though 50% plus one didn't actually support that guy. Instant runoff voting guarantees a majority victor. It guarantees a democratically majority, you know, victor until there's not a winner declared until you get to the 50% plus one threshold. So you had that a city councilman in Pueblo that just straight up lied and said instant runoff voting doesn't care, you know, doesn't generate majority victors when they absolutely do. It's guaranteed. The current elections don't guarantee majority victors. So the Super Tuesday, that's how I would do it, okay? If I'm, you know, campaign manager, if I'm the candidate, I'm not just going to drop out after the first 4 elections, but I bet you a lot of them will. And then on March 3rd, after 20, you know, states have voted for something, then we'll actually know who's winning and who's not. So right now, it's almost, I would say it's almost anybody's game. It's almost so Nate. It's anybody's game, and if you want to just, you know, use your own common sense. The polls, they do say something. They don't say, you know, it's not perfect, of course, right? With Hillary and Donald and Kentucky, there's so many polls that are just wrong, but they say something. They say, you know, what 500 old people who have landline phones. So the polls they, you know, call landline phones. Well, those are mostly older folks. So it says what 500 people think. And so that's a statistical, you know, sample, and that's supposed to be enough. It's not enough, but it does say something, but it doesn't say precisely, you know, what's going on. It says that some people think like this. So Bernie's been up in the polls, down in the polls, Joe's winning, and this and that. We really got to look at the methodology of these polls and who are these people, are they credible or not. So when it comes to who is winning, just think about who do you know. Out of the 25 candidates, who has got to you? Think about your own, you know, your own consciousness. If Mayor Pete Buttigieg has been able to get to you, then he's probably got to others too. So just, you know, your own understanding of the world, who do you know? Name recognition is so much more important, or so, you know, very, very, too important actually. Name recognition is way too important in politics. Some people just vote for the candidate because they know him. Oh, I know that person, which is better than, you know, voting for someone you don't know. Well, he's the right political party, but he's, you know, the opposite of all your views. So what? I'm a Republican. We're always going to win, even if we destroy the country. Right? My team is going to win, even if they enforce all the incorrect policies and sink America. So what I would, you know, I would counter to Nate. Essentially, there's who's winning right now. If you were to ask me who my favorite are, I can do that, and I'm gonna push for those favorites. And hopefully that, you know, the lesser known people actually get, you know, more informed on those folks. But just, you know, just think kind of logically. So who's made more traction? Who's got to you? Who do you look at? Who do you recognize? And if you're liking, you know, I didn't like Kamala, and I don't like a lot of these candidates because I'm a Bernie bro, but I feel like if we're actually going to have a good discussion, we're going to talk about the ideas. This is a campaign of ideas. Who's got the better ideas? And if they don't have a better idea, is there another candidate that does? And then can you evolve? I will definitely evolve on my list. I'm warming up more to Kamala Harris and Mayor Pete, even though they're not as progressive as I would like for them to be. They have a shit ton of progressive planks. So I'm not going to just dismiss Kamala Harris because I like Bernie. So for right now, I got 7 months to talk about this. So for 7 months, I'm going to, you know, look into Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang's got UBI. Andrew Yang is my number 4 choice. And UBI gets rid of poverty. He's also got 100 other policy statements. So I don't really know where Andrew Yang kind of sits on all these other issues. On Israel-Palestine, he had said something about why would we, you know, not support Israel? You know, because of the murder and the occupation and the blockade and what do you mean? Why would we not do it? $4 billion we give to them so they can, you know, murder Palestinians, and then we protect them with our Security Council veto. So the American government provides cover for this pit bull in the Middle East that's killing children. Should we put our pit bull on a leash? Should we use the power of the purse and say, hey, Israel, you better act right or we're not going to, you know, keep on supporting you? That's why they get away with their crimes, because they have carte blanche. They just know that the empire isn't going to say shit to anything that they do. Israel even bombed the USS Liberty. They killed 200 Americans, I think, during the '67 war, and they killed 200 Americans, and LBJ didn't do shit. So Israel's allowed to kill Americans, and we're not going to... That's an act of war. We went into Vietnam, the Gulf of Tonkin, LBJ, we said, hey, they invaded our ship, and so we went and escalated Vietnam. That was a lie. But Israel did blow up the USS Liberty, killed 200 American people. Did we invade Israel? Did we tell them not to do it? And then because we didn't do shit about it, that means Israel can do whatever the fuck they want to do. So, you know, I want more debates. Maybe a few of them could just debate each other on Palestine. I only care about what Bernie Sanders and Mike Gravel has to say about Palestine. And while both are rightfully critical of Israel because of the current open-air prison situations that's going on in Palestine today cannot continue, they both are right when it comes to criticizing Israel, but they disagree on the solution. To me, I only see two solutions. You have Palestine right next to Israel, and they have two states. Palestine controls their affairs, Israel controls their affairs. Now, Bernie Sanders is for a two-state solution because he wants to keep the Jewish character of Israel. So if Israel wants to maintain their Jewishness, then they can't invade Palestine and take over Palestine and just be for one single Jewish nation, because that's not going to work. That would be like Palestine taking over Israel and making them all Muslim. So one single state for Israel or Palestine, for one of them being in control and not the other, that can't work. And so what we can do, so Bernie Sanders wants a two-state solution, and he wants to protect Israel's Jewish character. So, because if you truly believe that, Israel should be allowed to be a Jewish theocracy nation state, then you would have to be in favor of a Palestine state. If you're not in favor of a Palestine state, then the other options aren't any good except for Mike Gravel. Mike Gravel is for a single secular state. Secular, meaning no establishment of religion, just like in America, right? A lot of people are Christian. People say we're a Christian nation, but we're actually a no-religion nation because we welcome Buddhists and Jews and Muslims. You have a freedom to religion or to have no religion at all. You get to choose what you want when it comes to religion in America. That's another solution that could work with the Israel-Palestine situation. But if Israel and Palestine create one government, then they're saying, well, then Israel won't have a Jewish character, and they'll still have a Jewish character. I don't actually agree with that argument. But Mike Gravel is saying by combining them into one, he's saying it's too late. They've already done all these settlements. They've already stole all this Palestinian land. They got this blockade, and he says, we've been doing the two-state solution forever, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. So because they both agree, that Israel needs to quit fucking with the Palestinians, they're both right about that, but they disagree on the solution. This would be an argument. This would be a debate that would educate all of America. So Mike Gravel and Bernie Sanders side by side, after these three debates, that would be badass. So we're going to see probably more debates, more piecemeal debates maybe people will drop out. There's 25 candidates, right? So if people don't make it to the debate stage, then they might just drop out. So I would love to see Bernie Sanders and Mike Gravel debate, and I don't give a shit about what anybody else has to say about it. Bernie is really good with the two-state solution. Mike Gravel is really good with the one-state solution. The only one-state solution that you can actually, that would work. So, I want to make a commentary, and then I want to, kind of break it down who I like and who I think is winning. So Joe Biden, right, people know Joe Biden, he's got name recognition, so he was up in the polls, down in the polls, so he's got name recognition. So compared to Eric Swalwell, did Eric Swalwell get to you like he got to me? Eric Swalwell was badass, confident, he kept, interjecting, getting his views out, not really paying attention to the specific rules. He was, got Bernie Sanders to agree to a buyback of all the guns, and then he also got Mayor Pete to think about firing his police chief because the police officer didn't have his body camera turned on. That's a policy. You broke the damn law, right? But no, we're going to pretend what? That him not having his body camera on, oh, well, maybe what he said was correct. If he had video, that would vindicate him. There's no video. So at the very least, that police officer is guilty of not having his body camera on. Eric Swalwell said, fire that guy. Fire the police chief. But if, you didn't get into Eric Swalwell like I did at the debates, then perhaps the debates aren't helping these long shot candidates as much. Now, the debates, I liked Kamala Harris. I liked her confronting Joe Biden. Joe Biden, she's absolutely right. She tried to prevent Kamala Harris from going to school. So he was against busing. That's how we're going to integrate the schools. Brown versus the Board of Education. Separate is not equal. So we all got to go to the same schools. How are we going to have the same schools? Well, we're going to bus, the students to the schools, and we're going to integrate them, right? Put the black kids with the white kids, put the white kids with the black kids, mix and match, and now we're integrated. But Joe Biden was opposed to that because Joe Biden, he's a goddamn fucking neoliberal. He's not a progressive. When he ran on civil rights, and then he gets up there and then he throws the black kids under the bus. Literally, he threw them under the bus that he wasn't going to provide for them. So what I really liked about these debates, so Joe Biden's got name recognition, but he's a shitty fucking candidate. He's an awful candidate. So is he winning because people recognize his name more? With 7 more months of campaigning, people are going to learn more and more about all these candidates. And so this gives an opportunity for those who aren't known to get their name out. And so, it is up to the candidates, also up to the citizen to, find out, what these candidates actually think. You're going to vote for these people and you don't even know what they believe in. You don't even know their policies. You don't even know the links to their platforms, and you're just going to go along with. So, Joe Biden is, might be winning in the polls right now, but because he's such a shitty candidate, he's just going to keep on dropping. He's going to go down, and there's so many more other candidates out there. So even though, let me talk about so the great thing about the Democratic debate, this is exciting. Don't you feel the electric in the air? Don't you feel energized? I am. Maybe that's why, I haven't been feeling so well. This guy, this little baby's playing with these fucking nukes. We can, end the entire world with nukes, but, we put a baby in charge to play with the nukes. He's saying, how come we don't use these nukes? I got all these nukes. How come I can't use them? That is terrifying. That is a terrifying ordeal. He's tweeting at everybody, shitting on that person, and he's got the power of the nukes. He's changed the conversation. He's a good politician, so he's going to be, hard to beat, so we're going to have to pick a badass. The Democrats are going to have to pick a badass if they want to win this election. But I think with the campaign and with them having these debates and then Iowa and then all the subsequent elections, I'm excited. I'm very excited. So the first debate was awesome, right? You get to see all the candidates side by side. I like seeing my candidates side by side. Jay Inslee looks like a good president, right? And looks ain't the only thing, but you got to be a cheerleader for your issues. Policy is all that really matters, but you got to be you got to be able to implement your policy, and the way you implement your policy is by being an exciting candidate, by speaking up for the issues that you believe in with vigor and saying we're going to get this done. This is how we're going to do it, and then get it done. The first debate, I want to mention that there was a normalization of the Spanish language and a normalization of criticizing the police. So what? The police can't do no wrong? Not Bill de Blasio. Mayor Bill de Blasio says that the police and the community need a very different relationship. So Mayor Bill de Blasio is in favor of community-based policing. Hickenlooper was also surprisingly for a civilian review board. A civilian review board, so that way the cops aren't just doing whatever they want willy-nilly. There's actually citizens that's over the police that's making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Of course we should have a civilian review board. Of course we should. And Hickenlooper said he did it, 20 years ago. Where you guys at? The Spanish language, you had Beto, Beto O'Rourke, Julian Castro, Cory Booker, and Mayor Pete Buttigieg. They were all speaking some kind of Spanish at this debate. So they're able to speak some Spanish. That's good. We do have, a big Mexican population, Hispanic population, and they're speaking Spanish. There's a joke about what do you call a person who speaks 2 languages? They're bilingual. What do you call somebody that speaks 3 languages? Well, they're multilingual. What do you call somebody that speaks 1 language? You call them an American. Because they are speaking Spanish, I think we should, speak more languages than just 1. It would be easier if we just made it all English, right? How easy would that be? But there's thousands of languages, so to speak Spanish, I think that's great. It's the normalization. We're normalizing the speaking of Spanish. That's a good thing. We need to be more educated. That's actually a good way for poor folks to acquire a skill, and they can be useful to society. Learn a language, and then you'll be able to, be an interpreter or whatever. So I thought that was great. The first debate normalized the Spanish language in the first debate, normalized criticizing the police. The police, not only can they not do any wrong, they should be held to a higher standard than a regular citizen. They got state power. They got a badge and a gun, and we're just going to what? Say, well, you know, I'm sure it was okay. I'm sure it's fine. I think people just don't give a shit, and if you give a shit, you might have to do something about it. So if they're shooting unarmed people, straight up murder, and they're getting away with murder, or you're pro-life, right? So why are you in favor of murder? That's not pro-life. Pro-lifers are going to sit there and say that if you get a morning after pill, and there is some fertilization, and there's a couple of cells, and that gets flushed out of the system, they're going to say that that's just like some man coming up and shooting another man in the head, just out of the blue. So that's murder, right? That's murder. The woman needs to go to jail. The abortion, the person that gives the morning after pill, they all need to go to jail because that's murder. But cops can murder, like real murder, right? Not this bullshit. They can actually kill a person, and they're not going to say that we need to, don't criticize the police. They always do right. They never do any wrong. Get the fuck out of here. To err is human. And then when you have power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if to err is human, and then you give that human power, that you're telling me that makes that person a Superman that will never do any wrong? Nah, fuck you. That's bullshit. So I think that's where we should be. Who is above reproach? I mean, even like really nice people, like we're Americans, we got free speech. Nobody's above reproach. If Mother Teresa was supposed to be this great person, but she's manifesting herself in the misery of others. So is she actually a great person? So I think to say that nobody, to say that some people are above reproach, some people just, you're not allowed to criticize them, it's so fucking dumb, and it's so stupid. So the first debate did those two things. And I was also, one criticism of them, and I'm sure liberals and progressives aren't going to like this, but really, when it comes to conservatives and progressives, conservatives are more with their brain, save your money. Liberals are saying we need to give a damn about people so they think with their heart. And so I think sometimes liberals go too far. They care about people, and they want people to be safe and they have good lives. But we got to be smart, right? So we need both. We need both the brain and the heart. We need to change some things, keep some things the same. We need to be conservative on some things, liberal on others, right? When it comes to gun, especially a conservative issue, but I'm liberal with my freedoms. So when it comes to the right to free speech, we are to interpret that very liberally. We have as much speech as we want, right? Money is speech. Even money is speech. That's how liberal freedom, that's how freedoms work. It's conservative because we're protecting the freedom, but it's liberal by saying in a community that is packing, you're going to have less crimes. So that's, pass guns out to every homeowner out here, and then you'll stop the home invasions. So I was shocked by how 10 candidates was in favor of health care for immigrants. 10 candidates were in favor of health care for immigrants. Andrew Yang and, 9 others. So this was, I think it was just one, I don't know. I know it was one debate. I'm not sure if it was both debates. But when they said, should immigrants get health care? No, they should not get, illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants should not get health care. What needs to happen is we need to fix the fucking immigration crisis, you stupid fuckers. People get mad at me because I had said that, we got 11 million illegals. I'm typing on the thing. I'm trying to use shorthand, and that's just sick. Hey, how dare you call that man illegal? I'm not saying their humanity is illegal. I'm not saying that their, existence on this planet is illegal. What I'm saying is that they're in this country illegal. And so if you're going to sit there and give incentives for people to break the law and to get into this country, and then we're going to give them driver's license, we're going to give them health care, you are literally creating incentives for them to come here. So what about the legal immigrants? What about the dumb fucks that actually, filled out the forms and the application and they're being extreme, getting extreme vetting? What about those dumb fucks? The legal immigrants are getting fucked over left and right. They're doing it the right way. They're doing it properly. Meanwhile, you got, this asshole that just hopped the border. Now he's living in this country. He did it illegally. So what needs to happen with immigration is we need a comprehensive immigration reform package where we do something with the 11 million. And I'm for a citizenship, a pathway to citizenship. I'm for, getting a lot of things, a Marshall Plan and ending the war on drugs. And if a state wants to vote and become an American state, then we get to decide if we want that, state to become a state. And then, like Puerto Rico and any country. If, Colombia wants to become part of America, if Bolivia wants to become America. So I'm very progressive on immigration. It's just that when it comes to border security, we need border security. So if you have a person, if you got land, right, you got a house and you got some land, even if you got an apartment, how many people are you going to let inside your apartment before you start complaining? Yeah, open borders. Let anybody and everybody get into your apartment and start living. No, get the fuck out of here. You would kick them out. So by having walls in your apartment building, by having walls in your house, by having a wall, you know, for a fence, these are deterrents from people getting inside your house. So we need to take care of the situation. By ignoring it, 11 million people are here, and you're not pushing your congressmen and your politicians to get comprehensive immigration reform. You're the reason why they're fucking illegal, American citizenry. You didn't tell your congressman to pass the comprehensive immigration law to have a pathway to citizenship so these illegals can become legal. Well, then you're the one that made them illegal, not me. That's a problem. 11 million people are here, and then we're getting like 15,000 up on the border every day. So that's both a humanitarian crisis and an immigration crisis. We are dealing with both of these things. So to say that we're going to give health care to immigrants when 5% of Americans don't even have health care, so we do need to take care of our own people first. And when you're starting, you know, when you care about the health care of immigrants and you don't care about the health care, I'm sure they would say universal health care for all Americans, too. But that I guess first things first, right? First thing is first. We're going to, you know, give, and then these people that were in favor of health care for immigrants, they were not in favor of abolishing private insurance. So you know who's going to pay for the health care of immigrants? It's going to be the people that's on the public health care, that's on the government option, that's on Medicare for all. So you're going to have the rich people still doing their private insurance, and then the poor middle-class folks who get government health care, well, it's going to be, you know, the burden is going to be put on their backs. So the immigrant population's health care is going to be paid for by a smaller, tinier pool of public taxpayers for those 8 candidates because some of them were in favor of keeping private insurance. And I think ultimately when it comes to health care, we're going to have a public/private, mixture. But they've been promising us universal health care. Hillary Clinton was supposed to get us, universal health care in the 90s. Then she sold out to the insurance companies. So now she's Republican when it comes to health care, but, they won't give her no credit for that. And then Obama said he was going to get us universal health care, and then he sells us out to the private insurance companies, too. So we've tried to get health care, and when it comes to who do I believe will get me universal government single-payer health care, I guarantee you Mayor Bill de Blasio, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren will all get us universal government health care because that's the issue they're running on. They're saying no private insurance. It's all government. We're all going to join in together, and it's just going to be government health care. So while that's, might not be the best solution or perfect or whatever, I don't hate it. For negotiating tactics, it's good. You walk in saying, we're only going to do government health care. We're going to get rid of these private insurance companies. Well, now the Republicans, what are they going to say? They're going to protect private health insurance because they don't give a shit that insurance companies are raping the shit out of everybody. They don't care. They don't, if they got plenty of money, then they can afford it. They don't worry about it. Or if they're poor people that, identify as rich even though they're not. So the Republicans are going to come with, okay, we're going to protect private health insurance and fuck government health insurance. We're going to let these companies rape the shit out of Americans, and we're not going to do any government health care whatsoever because fuck America, and fuck if they get sick, and who cares about their lives? Yeah, Republicans are so pro-life. Yeah, they're so pro-life, aren't they? Republicans aren't pro-life in the fucking least bit. They're pro-death every which way. Even when it comes to abortion, they're pro-death. So you have a 14-year-old that gets raped. She got raped. And now you're going to force her to have her rapist's child. And then she's going to have to care for that rapist kid for 18 years? What, while he's sitting in jail so she's going to have to support him? What the fuck are you all doing? You're opposed to that 14-year-old having her own life. Don't tell me you're pro-life. You're for ruining her life. That's why, you say the things that you say. Yeah, you're so pro-life because you're so scientific. They're anti-science, too. So they're going to sit there and be like, the science says it's life. The cell of of skin, the sperm cell and ovum, they are living, cells. That's life, right? And if you're going to say just because only when the cells are multiplying and then eventually, so if I'm in a petri dish and I put them together and they start, viability matters. So when does life begin? It's dependent on the mother for the first few months, and then eventually it can survive on its own. When it can survive on its own, that's important consideration. That's Roe v. Wade too. When the life can support, live on its own, that's when life begins.